If you look in this direction, you can see a sign for the Champlain Valley Transportation Museum. And if we turn this way, we can see a bateau, and we know we're near the Battle of Plattsburgh Interpretive Museum. And continuing with our 360, we find the Clinton County Historical Association Museum. Calvin Castine on I'm guessing the 20th day of August 2011. And we're in the beautiful downtown Plattsburgh. Looks like we've got folks from the 1860s here. The local genealogy group has invited a few others, along with the people at the Clinton County Historical Association, to set up here in front of the Historical Association Museum and have a display and some genealogy for folks whose ancestors participated in the American Civil War in the 1860s. So we expect to learn a whole lot of things today. And we've got a good variety of folks here. Julie Dowd is in charge of it. She's from the Northern New York American Canadian Genealogy Society. And it's set to be open to the public at 10. And as we're talking here, we're about 3 minutes before that. Folks have been mingling around. And we expect them to be set up shortly after 10, if not right on the button. It's a little after 10:20 and things are finally getting going for this 10 o'clock start here. Who am I talking with?
Dick Lynch.
Dick Lynch. I think we've chatted with you once or twice.
Yes,
already has.
Yes.
What you got here set up here today, Dick?
Well, this is our library's book sale.
Who's our library?
The Northern New York American Canadian Genealogical Society.
Okay, I wanted you to say that.
Yeah, I know you did. We're in on 15 Vine Street in Keysville, and we have some surplus books, and so we're just thinning out, and some good deals here, mostly history and genealogy related. So, good opportunity to have some home resources.
Okay, and whatever you don't sell today will still be available at your Keysville site, right?
Some of it's going to be on our website. Some of the more, the harder to find ones, and others can be had by requesting, I'm sure.
Okay. If you were to pick one, what would be the most important one that a person from Clinton County should look at?
Oh my. I don't think I could.
Yeah, you see, you've got some of the antiquarian, the Morsefield Press. I have that set, and I know they sell them here too at the Historical Association.
There's a little bit of everything. There's the Acadian Exchange journals. The Acadians have a very unique story. It's also the southern Louisiana. They're also Acadians. That's where they were exiled to. Right. Those are all very good books. There's a lot of general resources, ancestry type resources, a lot of Quebec resources. These Quebec journals. Some you have to be able to read French, but they have a lot of good family-related stories in them. Very interesting stuff.
Okay, well, hope you sell a bunch.
Well, we do too. Good deals.
One of the things we noticed is that they didn't quite decide on which way the public is supposed to attend. These folks here are facing the street, and the folks over here are facing the inner part of the of the sidewalk here. So, I guess they didn't quite coordinate from one end to the other about which way the public is supposed to flow. We have the Allens here from Peru, and looks like Ron is continuing to expand his vast knowledge, and Carol is joining him. Each of the towns have a spot available, I believe, in Clinton County. There's a sign that will be going up I would expect very shortly. Battle of Valcour, October 11th, 1776. Across this strait, a small colonial fleet fought the British to a standstill, causing a 3-day running conflict that delayed the British advance to divide the colonies. This action allowed time for the Americans to rebuild their forces and win the Battle of Saratoga in 1777. And it's going to be erected by the Valcour Battle Chapter Empire State Society Sons of the American Revolution in 2011. Okay, we have a low ceiling here. And we have the historian from all the way from a place called Ellenburg. What's your name?
Ruth Ann LeBombard.
And what did you bring with you today, Ruth Ann?
Well, I brought my lady, who is dressed in...
Who's this fellow with you here?
This is my husband, Lawrence LeBombard.
He's not on camera right now, neither is your lady, but he was awfully friendly with that lady when he was carrying her over
that's
here.
His girl. I have books here on the residents of Ellenburg and families from Ellenburg, like the Ormsby family, Peralt's, Drown and Sunderland. And over here we have your cemeteries, Sheldon Hill, St. Edmunds, all of Clinton County and parts of Franklin. And down on this end we have more families, McPherson's, Andre Bombard, Doctors of Ellenburg, LeBombard, Genealogy.
All right, so this is, you're talking these books, you're talking genealogy, so you got their ancestors. And,
right.
All right, how did you happen to come by these?
Well, I've made them up over the years.
Uh-huh.
And as I got the information, and then I put them in binding. This is the Collins.
Now, is this...
And people who donate stuff to Ellenburg, they're put in the archive room, and where they're safe from fire or any kind of damage.
Okay, well, you kind of probably moved out of the camera here, so I want to keep you in the camera and less of me. So how did it come by these particular families? Did these families contact you, or you just pick them out of they contacted you?
They contacted me, like the Ormsby family. Leah Drown gave me the complete book of the Ormsby family and what she had on the history of her family. And, of course, she's married to Donald Drown, and he gave me the Drown history. And Peralt, that came by very easily because, oops.
Don't knock my, pick up your, I hope he doesn't knock my camera over.
That came by very easily because my husband's mother was a Peralt.
All right.
So her genealogy was completed through the
Is that ever pronounced Perot?
Peralt is the way we pronounce it. And that's about it for here, but I do have a lot more information at home and at the town.
Okay. So
if anybody wants to visit and come and see, they're more than welcome.
So people whose ancestors lived in and around Ellenburg, whether they're current residents or not, but their families are from there, and they've done this research, you would certainly appreciate getting a copy of it.
Right, I certainly would. And it would be kept where there wouldn't, nothing could happen to it. So I appreciate any information that I could get.
Okay, do you have a location where this is stored?
Yes, it's stored at the Town Hall in Ellenburg Center. And
upstairs or
in the archive room. They have an archive room.
Is that upstairs or?
It's it's only one level. Upstairs is the Town Hall Theater.
Right.
And if you're ever in that area and you want to visit and take a tour, I'm more than willing to give one to you. There's no problem there.
Do you have regular office hours, or are you?
No, I don't, but you can contact me with my phone number, and I can come out anytime. That's convenient to anybody, because I know working situations and things, people don't get a chance, but I try to make myself accessible.
Okay, how big a room? Some towns are real good for historians. Some towns just kind of give you a little.
It's a good sized room. Yes, it'll hold up to 250 boxes of stuff, and it's all climate controlled. It's under lock and key, of course. I hate to have to do that, but that's the situations in these days.
That's right.
And like I said, there are, I'll give you an example, we have the Beckwith Bible, and that was donated by a husband to his wife when they first got married, and we have that. We have yearbooks from NACS. We have
Maybe Ellenburg Central too?
right, and we have doctors' books and information on the Masons, and we have newspapers from the school. There is a lot of things to really go over and to see. We have cemetery records, we have marriages and engagements. We have quite a bit of information, but we're always looking for more and glad to get whatever we can.
Yeah, a lot of times when someone passes on and their family comes across this big stack of papers, they say, toss it.
And it's a terrible thing to think that it's being wasted and thrown away when years down the line they're going to be looking for information and it's not going to be there.
Right.
So that's the worst part of it.
All right, so how about giving us your phone number? And,
It's 518-594-7453. And feel free to call me anytime, and I make myself accessible to everyone.
all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll turn the camera here and get a picture of her husband and his girl. The girl did a face plant here as we were talking. She went, the wind caught her and she went straight down, but she's back on her feet now and being gently taken care of. We're going to try to squeeze in here next to Mr. William Glidden, Bill Glidden.
How are you this morning?
I am well, thank you.
Very good.
I know Civil War has been your stuff, but I see you sitting here next to the Battle of Valcour sign, so you're also involved in a lot of history.
Indeed I am. I'm former president of the Untitled Chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution in Albany. And I'm currently the historian for the Valcour Battle Chapter, which was formed about 4 or 5 years ago up here in the Plattsburgh area. And I'm also a member of the Colonel George Willard Camp of the Sons of the Union Veterans, which is the capital district. So yeah, I'm sort of involved in history to a bit of an extent.
Okay, I was under the mistaken impression that today's focus would be pretty much entirely on the Civil War, but obviously not.
Well, they gave an opportunity to the historians in the area, and if you notice my shirt, I'm a historian along with Jerry Bates from the town of Plattsburgh.
Okay.
And I've been involved with both the sesquicentennial for the Civil War, which is the 150th anniversary, which we're celebrating the 150th year from 1861 this year. The national event, or the signature event, you probably might have heard, was held at First Manassas.
Yes.
And or what is known as Bull Run, and it looks as if where the next year's 1862 is also going to be held at Manassas, and that would be the second battle in Manassas. And so we've been working along with that, working along with the historians across the state of New York through the Association of Public Historians, and the state historian Dr. Robert Weibel has been involved both in the Civil War and in the War of 1812. But we have as of yet to organize a chapter of the Sons of the War of 1812 up in this area. But I can qualify by my family lineage, which goes back to 1660 in New Hampshire, for most of these, but I can't quite find a record. I know that there was a couple in the War of 1812, but you've got a situation where you got to be directly descended from individuals. So I miss out on the War of 1812.
Can't be a relative's brother or something like that there. It's gotta be...
In the Sons of the Union Veterans, you can do that. Sons of the American Revolution, you can't.
Okay. So if people have traced their genealogy and they do have such an ancestor, should they get a hold of you?
Yes, get a hold of our president is is Jim Hayes. He does quite a bit of our work and pulling paperwork together and so forth. And or he can get in touch with me. I'm the historian for the particular unit.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the Civil War, and of course, being from New York State, most of us have probably never given a lot of thought to our involvement with the Civil War. Closest we could think of was when a few fellows raided St. Albans over in Vermont. But New York does have a large impact on the war between the states.
True. Over 500,000 men went from this state to the Civil War. At the first Battle of Manassas, or first Bull Run, there were 5 divisions in that Union Army, about 35,000 men that went out to meet 20,000 on the battle line between Manassas and Centerville, which is about 20 miles southwest of Washington. First 3 divisions were primarily the 90-day militia units, which were the National Guard of the day. They had various colorful uniforms and so forth. They were young men. They were equipped. They didn't know too much about how to handle themselves on a battlefield, to say the least. The 4th and 5th Division of the Union Army that went under McDowell was basically the reserve, and then the 5th Division was the brigade that contained the 16th, the 18th, 31st, and the 32nd Regiment. The 16th Regiment had Company C and E from Plattsburgh, and Company K from West Shazy and Moores. Another one in that same division was the 38th, and the 38th was the 2nd Scots Life Guards, and Company K was from E-Town. So there you have 3 companies directly from the area that were involved in that Battle of Bull Run. Young men that just 3 months before that were sons and neighbors and so forth of people in this area.
Yeah, they were plowing the fields and doing whatever else people did back in the
18 and 20-year-olds.
Yeah. And this sudden resurgence in learning about the history of our local impact in the Civil War has suddenly brought out quite a few people that have letters from soldiers and so on.
That's what we're looking for this year, is what primarily took place on the home front. And we're looking for whatever people may have in their attics or in their closets or whatever that have been saved as keepsakes or whatever, of letters, photographs, so forth. I know that a few years ago, through an estate that was being handled in Pennsylvania, I ran across a letter that was from my great uncle to a family in Crown Point.
Wow.
And it was the 5th New York Cavalry. I have the photograph of my great-grandfather and him together as brothers, and he was 18 years old when he went out with John Hammond and the other 100 from Crown Point. And John Hammond's father bought all Black Morgans over in Vermont for all the men there, outfitted them.
Oh, wow.
And that company came from the north. And then I also have his discharge paper and so forth. Well, that letter is now sitting in the Army Heritage Center at Carlisle at the Army War College, where the Army War College is located, and that is on file down there now. But when he wrote it, he was writing just after the Second Battle of Manassas in 1862. Another short battle occurred, which was in the town of Chantilly, which is just north of Centerville. And he writes home to a family in Crown Point. That family had a lady in the family that was his fiancée. And he wrote home to the family and said he just rode out of Alexandria and rode into the battlefield at Chantilly and said to him that doesn't quite look like the Battle of Bull Run. He says, now to explain how the Confederates bury their dead, he says there's arms and legs and heads poking up all over the ground around here. He says the worst thing I saw was a leg and a boot laying on the ground. And he went on to explain that the loss of the 2 generals that were on that field that day, Phil Kearny and Isaac Stevens, were both lost that day, and he mentions that in the letter. And then he says to the family in the Crown Point, I think I've written enough about what I'm seeing out here.
Yeah.
I'll write to you later.
It's certainly has to be a shock. Obviously, 1860s, the life expectancy wasn't that large, so people were used to death, but still, this was a brutal way to die.
That's for sure. The technology had advanced quite quickly in the 1850s, so that you now had breech loaders and Sharps rifles. You also had the invention of the telegraph wire in the 1850s that spread all over. The railroad spread all over. So technology had advanced, but tactics sort of didn't quite keep up with the whole pace. So when they went to war in the first few days, they were still carrying smoothbore muskets that fit more in the War of 1812, and all they know, the officers had no training. You can imagine, you appoint a young fellow in the town here. Well, you're the son of so and so, so you're the captain of the unit that's going out of here, and neither you nor the men have any training, and so they got about 2 months worth of marching back and forth, and that was about it. And so basically, when they got on the battlefield, your officers were having their sabers and were basically holding them out, so that just keep the line straight and just volley fire, just keep advancing. And it took probably about a year before they started really learning how to make flank movements and maneuver around on the battlefield. And Lee was very good at that. Lee and Stonewall Jackson were a pair that really kept the Union Army on the run. As a matter of fact, I don't think we won a battle until Gettysburg in 1863. And the more you study the Civil War, the more you find out that it was the northwestern states sort of helped save the Union.
Really?
And it was General Grant that and General Halleck came from the west, and General Grant. And Grant may have had to fight down the Mississippi River until finally, when the Vicksburg fell at the same time as Gettysburg, they finally had control of the entire Mississippi River Valley. And that was basically spelling the end of the Confederacy when there was a stranglehold, which the president had come up with the idea of the anaconda snake wrapping itself around the South and strangling it to death. Anyway, I just ramble on at times.
That's all right. That's all right. But so that was a brutal time. Brothers against brothers. I'm sure. Besides that, there were fathers against sons.
That was the truth. That was the truth. Yeah. As a matter of fact, down in Troy, Oakwood Cemetery. And you stop at the main office at the Oakwood Cemetery. They will give you a map to show you through the area. You will find the graves of Uncle Sam Wilson, where all the crates, the meat he shipped out during the War of 1812 was marked U.S.
Okay.
So that's how that came about. Also buried up there was John Wool, and you might have heard of the name before up here because he was very. His gravesite down there has the Battle of Queenston Heights in the War of 1812 was the first, and that's where General Brock of the British Army was shot. And then the second one is when he was here at Plattsburgh, and he went up there, and the militia was sort of retreating down the road when all the thousands of British were coming down the road here that were laying out a War of 1812 trail this year. And on September 5th, Monday, we're opening up, we're emplacing French and English interpretive signs, and which the new National Heritage Area in the area has helped us in providing the support to. But going back to the Troy and to Wool's grave, third area that he was noted for was the Battle of Langostura, or the battle that took place in Buena Vista in the northwestern part of Mexico during the Mexican War. And the last that's on that monument down there, and what it is about a 70-foot obelisk, is the Battle of Norfolk. he went back during the Civil War and retook Norfolk. So you can have one officer that stretched from the War of 1812 to the middle of the Civil War. And his house is located in Troy. It's part of the Russell Sage campus. It's known as the Wool House. And another person that is buried, when we get back talking about having people on both sides and related in the families, the Battle of Chattanooga, or the Battle of Chickamauga that just occurred before that. You had George Thomas. I don't know if you ever heard of the name of George Thomas.
No,
but George Thomas became known as the Rock of Chickamauga. And he held the line for the Union Army when they were battling with the Bragg, and the Confederate basically took their positions up on the Missionary Ridge overlooking Chattanooga. But George Thomas was a Virginian, and his entire family disowned him.
Oh, because he's on the wrong
Because he decided to stay on the side of the Union. And he is buried down there. There's another. It's quite a monument to Thomas. That he's buried in his wife's family plot.
Okay, because his family would have nothing to do with him.
His family would have nothing to do with him.
So just one last thing on the letters. If people do know of letters, obviously they may not want to get rid of the original, but they can make a copy and contact their local historian.
Sure. You just contact your local historian. Town historian for the town of Plattsburgh is Jerry Bates. I work along with Jerry as his deputy. The two of us work together on historic projects in the area. Or Jan Kuchar up in the town of Saranac, or Ron Allen over the town of Peru, or Gary Van Coor up in the town of Beekmantown. We're all working together. We would certainly like anybody to stop by, and we can make a copy, whatever, or stop here at the Clinton County Historical Museum.
All right. Well, as you can see, Mr. Bill Glidden is a font of information, and it's amazing to have all that knowledge in there, and to be able to throw out those names and, and everything just at will. Thanks for talking with us, Bill.
Great.
All right, we've got the, what's your name and your title, sir?
I'm Jim Hayes. I'm the Valcour Battle President, Sons of the American Revolution Chapter, Battle of Valcour. We have high hopes that the sign which you are focused on right now will be erected before the battle this year. Commemoration, which is on the 11th of October. And this will be near the battle site.
You haven't picked a specific spot yet?
We don't have things confirmed up as to the exact location, but it'll be on Route 9. Close to the battle site.
Put it on Roger Harwood's lawn or something.
Yeah. Well, Roger's a little further off the beaten path.
Yeah.
This will be probably very near the Valcour Conference Center.
Okay, it's certainly an impressive sign, and there won't be any place there to pull over and park. It's just going to be a drive-by type of sign.
Well, that's some of the things that we're working on. We hope to have some other activities worked out, but right now they're still in a work in progress, and we have a long way to go.
Yeah, although it's not that late in the year, October, but as somebody who's observed celebrations of the Battle of Valcour and the Battle of Plattsburgh. Battle of Plattsburgh usually has a little bit better weather than you get around October 11th. Sometimes you get nice days, but
yep, that's for sure.
But you sometimes get very inclement weather when you're. And I can imagine that. Yeah, I think that when that battle occurred, the weather was a little nasty.
There were indications that it was, yes, and very definitely with all the gunpowder that was exploded that particular day, there was a very great change in the weather.
A lot of boomers, and it wasn't thunder. Okay, anything else that I should know?
Not at the present time that I can think of.
Okay. Now, do you listen to everything that Bill Glidden tells you and believe every word?
Absolutely.
All right. You're a good man. Thanks for chatting with us.
Thank you.
I'm going to call her the instigator.
Yeah, yet again.
The initiator, or whatever, of today's event.
Yes.
Julie Dowd. And what is your title with the Northern New York American Canadian Genealogical Society?
I am the librarian, and I'm also on the board of the Genealogical Society. And I'm also a trustee at the Clinton County Historical Association.
And we happen to be right on their lawn.
Exactly, and I'm also an outreach officer, and this is part of our outreach program. CCHA. Yep.
CCHA, okay. So this is a CCHA event?
No, actually it's an NNYACGS event hosted by CCHA.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because there's no way in heck I could have. Have you been rehearsing that?
No. I've just been so
natural.
many years now, yeah.
Okay, what is the theme then? I've been trying to explain the theme, but there seems to be a lot of different aspects here, but the main theme was?
The main theme is Civil War. We have a 4-year commemoration coming up, starting with this year. And what we decided to do with the Genealogical Society is to naturally find out the family histories of our Civil War ancestors, and if indeed we did have Civil War ancestors, and that's what people are doing here today.
Okay. Now, I know in the past, back in 2009, you did the Ancestors Walked with Champlain.
Yeah.
Last year it was the Filles du Roi.
Right?
These were the king's daughters who came over to help populate the...
Yes, and they did a very good job too, yeah.
Oh, you're being attacked from
Yeah,
behind here.
Lily and I'm on TV here.
That's your grandkid?
Granddaughter, this
Come
is
in
Lily
front
of
of-
Valley.
All
Yes.
right,
She's from Ellenburg.
Come in, you get in front of Grandma, and
There
Grandma
we
get
go.
right back where she was.
Yeah.
That tripod doesn't know that you moved. You're from
Yeah.
Ellenburg?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah? I'm related to some Lavalleys, too.
Oh, well, if you're related to one valley, you're related to them all. Yeah.
Okay, I know in the past with with those two groups, the Champlain and the Filles du Roi, you were able to trace a lot of ancestors back. Did you have as much luck this time?
Wonderful luck, because you don't have to go so far back. We have a lot of resources online, of course. Have you spoken with Bob St. John in there yet? He is a wonderful resource. And the New York State Military Museum in Albany, or Saratoga I think it is, has a great website. And what Bob St. John is doing is, with our Civil War Committee, he is going to make a book about all our Civil War ancestors who enlisted in Clinton County and who are buried in Clinton County. And we're hoping to get some funding from the Lake Champlain Basin program, which has money available, and we're going to publish a book on
great.
our ancestors. Yep.
It won't be my ancestors, but...
No, you never know.
Well, I would be surprised.
Oh, yeah.
I pretty much all French, so...
Yeah. Well, we had a talk here the other day of Canadians in the Civil War. There were over 50,000 Canadians in the Civil War. And they came down here sometimes a long time before the Civil War, but they decided to fight. A lot of them went to Louisiana because of the French connection, of course, and they fought on the south. And a lot of the ones that came down through the border in Champlain and wherever fought for the north. So we do have a lot of Civil War ancestors. In fact, Mitchell Bully, who used to look after the lighthouse in the harbor in Plattsburgh, Boulay actually was his name, and he's a relation of Milton Boulay, who is a Genealogical Society member. He's wonderful. He's right here today. He came to see it. And we've got Civil War ancestors. My son-in-law's great-great-great-grandfather lost 3 sons in the Civil War, Barnaby. And there are a lot of French Canadians who came down here and fought for the Union.
Oh, well, hopefully if they did fight, they fought for the Union.
Yeah.
Mostly we ran. The gunshots sound, the Catsteins, the Trudeaus, we all ran the other way.
Well, there's a lot of people who joined just for the money so they could buy their farms. And apparently the bounty money bought a lot of houses and farms in northern New York and Vermont. Yep.
Well, that's a possibility, because the first Castine that shows up is on the 1869 map, and he wasn't there in 1856, so who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. I'll have to look it up. Go and talk to Bob St. John. He knows everything about that.
Yeah, but that's just one So it's one branch of the
Yeah,
tree. Of
yeah.
course, when you go back a few generations, you've got 16 and 32.
Oh,
then,
yeah.
so there's a lot of branches out there.
Yeah.
And through you, I've learned I've related to a lot of people, like
Yes.
Brother Andre. And
Oh, exactly. Yes, Pierre Elliott Trudeau. I remember that one. Yeah.
I knew that already. but
Yeah. And what was I going to say? What we're doing here, and it's wonderful, is that people are actually bringing their Civil War documents here for us to scan and copy, and we're putting them in our files. In fact, we have a lady here and her brother, her nephew, who brought some information. I forget what the guy's name was right now, but you can talk to her later. And then he brought, as a sideline, he said, maybe you want to see this. This was an actual picture of one of the men who captured John Wilkes Booth.
Wow.
And the picture had been in the family and never been seen before. So we're lucky we have it here.
Do you want to see?
It's
No,
wonderful.
you said no. We don't want to see that.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And there's so much interesting stuff around here. There's letters and documents and photographs, everything. People are just being so generous with bringing their things in for us to see.
Okay. Obviously, there aren't 1,000 people here today, so there might be 1,000 people watching this.
Yeah.
What should they do if they have this kind of stuff sitting?
Well, what happens is you can come in and talk to any one of us who happen to be
CCHA?
here, CCHA, and what we are doing is making appointments for us to scan the documents or photograph or whatever, and we will go to people's houses or they can bring the stuff here. We've had some people who actually very generously gave us the actual Civil War documents. Unbelievable.
Wow.
It's amazing to touch that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And history-wise, it's only 150 years,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's still awfully important.
Oh, amazing, yes, because nobody seems to have done this before. You know, there is an awful lot of history of Civil War soldiers in Clinton County, but nobody's actually collated it and gathered it together. I think that's going to be a good thing for us.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
could be a mound of history when it's all finished.
It's going to be wonderful, and when we get that grant, it's going to be very helpful for us to publish it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I did attend Bob St. John's little talk they gave at the Legion in Rouse's Point a couple of months ago,
Yes.
and of course Dr. Southwick pulled out some James Lucas letters that he's found. We
Yeah.
did a stroll up in Ellenburg with Richard Moore, who has some letters.
Oh, yes.
I know Annie Paps, Frank Paps' missus, has letters,
Yes.
and so they're out there. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of people coming forward and
Yeah.
knowing that there are people willing to share those,
Oh, yeah.
and you can get them back. You haven't got
Oh
to
yeah,
give 'em up.
what's nice nowadays is you can scan them and copy them and say, here you are, thank you very much for bringing them in. This one here had an ancestor in the Civil War, Leander Ledoux, and he died of yellow fever and never came back, and his poor wife was devastated and in poverty, and applied for a pension, and she didn't actually get the pension till after 1900, which was a real shame.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's a little late to help her
Yeah,
then.
oh yeah, 2 children died in the meantime, and she lived in poverty. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we want to thank you for all you do for history. Anything else that you said I got to tell Calvin before?
I'd just like more people to come and see what's at the museum, and we do have an awful lot of outstanding historical items in this museum, and our genealogical society is world class, really, because it has to do only with Clinton County. And come and visit us. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Julie. And again, thank you for all that you do. People like her, and there are very few people as dedicated as Julie Dowd. And I appreciate what she does, and this is just a little example of it. We've got a couple of things to record in the Champlain area, so head out of here. But we did want to take time to cover this. Gordy Little, as we said at the onset, is off at a family birthday party in Connecticut, so he couldn't be here with us. But we did want to give some coverage to this annual event, and who knows what the theme will be next year in 2012. This is the August 20th, 2011 look. Thanks for watching.